Okay, good evening, those of you watching online and those of you who are here in person. We have plenty of seats at the front, just to make sure you are aware we are, feel like a Baptist church right now. But good evening, my name is Crystal Barber. I have the honor of serving as the high school principal here in Broken Arrow, and we just want to thank you again for coming in person and those of our attendees online. Again, thank you for coming out this evening and just learning about this really important topic. So at the high school, our vision is that we are empowering our diverse student body to be college and career and life ready. So with that vision in mind, we really feel it's necessary to empower our students and our community and our staff and all of our stakeholders in this topic of fentanyl and how harmful it can be. We want to make you aware we are not seeing this as a rampant problem, but this is a proactive measure that we are taking to make sure our kids and our community are safe. So let me just give a couple shout outs and thanks to the people that made this evening possible. Our Broken Arrow Public Schools communications team, our Broken Arrow High School team, and then of course Broken Arrow Police Department, our speakers this evening, and then all of our vendors that we have out in the grand lobby this evening. Students, parents, staff, community members, again, thank you for being here. In just a second, I'm going to turn it over to Chief Brandon Berryhill, and then Ethan Hutchins is going to talk to us about the format for the evening and then MC for us. So without further ado, Chief Berryhill.
Well, thanks for coming. So I'm going to let Sergeant Eric Nestor actually get nuts and bolts of the presentation. He's got a lot of information to give out. So I really just want to kind of frame the conversation. Fentanyl is something that it's new in my career. It's not something that we all grew up with. It's something that's really accelerated over the last few years. And the way I like to talk about why we need to have formats like this and talk to our kids is if you're a parent and you have a kid that knows how to drive, I think we all went through that painful process of teaching our kids how to drive safely. And that whole process was we were doing that to keep them safe. And you spend all that time doing driver's ed, teaching them how to drive. Fentanyl is much more dangerous driving a car. And we need to spend just a fraction of that time talking to our kids about what fentanyl is and how it's dangerous. It's something that I've never seen before. If you'd have told me 8 years ago I'd have Narcan in my first aid kit, I would have told you, why. I think last year between us and the fire department, we administered Narcan to approximately 230 different individuals. Just last night, we had an officer administer Narcan to somebody and then give that person CPR so he didn't pass away in a parking lot of a business here in town. Fentanyl is 50 to 100 times more potent than heroin. That's what we're talking about. So everybody kind of understands how potent heroin is. It's at a whole nother level. And fentanyl that's coming into our community is something that is disguised normally as something else. So extremely dangerous. It's something that's accelerating. It's not going away. If you're 18 to 45 years of age in America right now, fentanyl overdose is the #1 cause of death, more than cancer, car accidents, everything else. So that tells you how fast it's accelerated. So I'm going to go ahead and turn it over. I think Mr. Hutchins is going to introduce one of our main speaker, and we'll be around to answer questions afterward. So thank you for coming.
Good evening. So we're going to have 3 presenters tonight with 20-minute presentations, followed by a 5-minute Q&A. So our first presenter tonight is Sergeant Eric Nestor, and let's welcome him to the stage.
Good evening. I'm Sergeant Eric Nestor. Thank you for coming out tonight. One of the main reasons that we have this going on is we've seen an increase in fentanyl in our community and statewide, especially starting about 2015 to 2016, and then slowly increasing up until about 2020, where we experienced a spike, and it put it to where a lot of people categorize it as epidemic proportions. So while we're getting the visuals up in the background, I can give you a little bit about why they have me here and kind of how we ended up in the position that we're in. I worked narcotics for Broken Arrow Police Department for a little over 7 years. During that portion, I had a canine, and I'm also an EMT. And being an EMT and working narcotics, those two specialties naturally blended whenever it came to working overdoses on the medical side of it. So essentially, when I started, we had hydrocodone was the #1 prescription painkiller that was out there, and that was 20 years ago. If you think about what hydrocodone is being issued out for now, you'll realize that as a stronger medication came out, they didn't take out the middle of the road medication. They just bumped it down and started issuing out for lower level events. And I'm not picking on hydrocodone or any of the companies that are making it. What happened is that was made for major surgeries, and as the next level came up, they moved it down and would issue it out for, say, chronic pain rather than post-surgery. And then when the next level came up, they moved everything down to the point now that I can go in and claim a tension headache and potentially get at least a small dosage from an urgent care clinic, whereas 20 years ago, it was only for post-surgery. And so in doing so, we had a lot more people get exposed to opiate prescriptions, even through legitimate means. Once we started, as a state, recognizing that we had an issue with opiates, they really started clamping down on the prescriptions that were issued out. In addition to that, they crush-proofed the oxy, which took away one of the main illicit ways of doing oxycodone. When we did that, you had a lot of people who were used to taking opiates, sometimes for legitimate means that may have gotten out of their control, and then they all of a sudden couldn't get what they needed. That is how your average citizen, your neighbor, the person that you would never suspect of having an addiction problem, could have spiraled into doing heroin or ultimately doing fentanyl. Because a lot of people don't understand the path that a lot of people went down to go from, I take this on occasion because I had a sports injury, to all of a sudden I'm buying heroin from somebody or I'm taking fentanyl. So a lot of people ask, what is fentanyl? So fentanyl is an opiate that is 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine. It does have legitimate purposes, and it is legitimately prescribed. So when you see fentanyl that is being pulled out of the trunk of a car, or posed for a seizure photo, a lot of people say, well, why don't we go after the hospitals or the pharmacies and stop this where it is? There seems to be a disconnect where people don't understand that there is illegal fentanyl and there's legal fentanyl. There is legal fentanyl that is prescribed, that is highly regulated, significantly smaller and metered doses that are available through pharmacies and through hospitals. That is not what is causing our issues. There's an illegally manufactured version, which comes typically in powder form, and it can be converted into pressed pill form. And that is what is spurring the overwhelming majority of our overdoses. So some of the things to look for on usage, obviously it's going to be a euphoric effect, confusion, and it will cause withdrawal if you're not taking it. And that's actually one of the main catalysts that keeps people from being able to successfully overcome that addiction rapidly. It is an ongoing process. You'll have nausea, vomiting, the loss of appetite. One of the main things about fentanyl is it binds to a specific receptor in your brain. And ultimately, the way that fentanyl or other opiates can cause a fatal overdose is it slows your breathing to the point that you cannot maintain consciousness. And then while you are unconscious, then you will lose brain activity due to a lack of oxygen. It basically slows your breathing to the point of death. That's one of the reasons in all of the medical intervention sides, they really harp on, are they breathing? What is their breathing status? Because while some illicit drugs will cause heart attacks and some will cause strokes, opiates overwhelmingly cause a breathing issue that can result in death. One of the other misnomers that I like to address is when people hear the term overdose, I like to equate it to essentially a drowning. When you hear the word someone drowned, what is the first thing you think? You think it's a fatal drowning, right? When you hear they drowned, you don't think, oh wow, that person could have survived that. The terminology almost always for people indicates fatality. Overdoses are along the same lines. We can have overdoses without fatalities, just like we can have a drowning without a fatality. So when you see the stats on the overdoses with, 30 overdose calls that we've done this year, where we've responded to those, that does not mean 30 deaths based off of that. So it's very important that you understand the difference in terminology and how it equates. There we go. All right, clearly we are in the midst of an overdose epidemic. One of the scary stats for us is when overdoses started eclipsing vehicle fatalities and firearm fatalities. At the very end of COVID, the CDC ended up putting out a stat, and I got it on a news alert, that including COVID deaths or including motor vehicle collisions, that overdose fatalities were the leading cause of death for the age of 18 to 45. That is a scary statistic, that it can eclipse two of the things that have overwhelmingly been the top killers of that age group for, quite honestly, decades. So it is currently in the top 10 leading cause of death in the state. The overprescribing we covered earlier on how we were giving out too many prescriptions and we were giving them for lesser and lesser ailments, and that ended up causing a dependency. So the public health indicators, we got these statistics from our friends over at the Bureau of Narcotics. They do a good job of keeping tabs on this trend. It's a constant fight. So overdose deaths by year on fentanyl. As you can see, and I'll step to the side here so you can still get a good audio for it. As you can see, in 2017, there were 54. And I don't ever want to say only, because 54 is too many, one is. But when you look at how it starts going up in 2020 at 137 and 2021 at 299, that is a clear spike that is showing a trend in the unfortunate direction. And the treatment admissions, we found the slide to be pretty interesting. Over on the side, the treatment admissions for fentanyl use were actually going down. We don't have solid indications as to why, other than a lot of the Narcan interventions were keeping people from having to go in and seek medical care immediately, but also the change in the state law that changed all drug use from the misdemeanor, correction on that, from the felony to the misdemeanor. It nullified a lot of the enforcement part that could compel somebody to go in and seek treatment. So, especially through the court systems, we saw a significant decrease in people seeking treatment whenever they were caught with an illicit substance. So overdoses, fatal drug overdoses by year in Oklahoma. This is everything. This isn't just fentanyl. As you can see, it has basically doubled since 2005 up to where we currently are. You've got obviously some highs and lows just as trends change, but we're still sitting at about over 1,000 per year. and then pharmaceuticals versus illicit. So during the highlight of the opiate overprescribing, obviously we had a significant number of opiate prescription overdoses. There's also a lot in the anti-anxiety drugs like benzodiazepines, commonly known as Xanax or alprazolam. Those numbers are up there. But the illicit drugs are still obviously the top category. What shocks a lot of people is whenever you find out that meth is still the leading overdose causer. The best way to explain it is you have to go off of usage numbers. And while fentanyl is considered to be very often the boogeyman in the room, they look at it and say, oh my gosh, fentanyl is going to kill you instantly. Overwhelmingly, there are still more people that are consuming methamphetamine than are consuming fentanyl. And one of the hidden portions of this stat is we are seeing adulterated illicit drugs very often. So that meth that is causing the death could be very often meth that is mixed with fentanyl. And that is going to cause kind of an unseen increase in it, because when we interview somebody or we do the preliminary test, it may be overwhelmingly meth, but it may be spiked with fentanyl, and that is going to cause an increase in those deaths. So by drug comparison, whenever you put it in this kind of a chart fashion, you can very much see how much higher meth is than fentanyl, but then fentanyl is to its next contender. Those are clearly our top two issues with overdose death. So our 22 Narcan deployments by incident. Our fire department runs our ambulance service in Broken Arrow. If you guys are unaware of it, we don't have a third-party contractor. So the fire department administered Narcan to 195 patients in 2022, and that doesn't count the number that the PD administered Narcan to as well. So this is going to be incidents. This isn't the number of deployments or the number of dosage units. So out of these 195, they could have received multiple dosage units in order to bring them back. Some of them will be successful, and unfortunately, some of them will not. So the overdose calls for service totals. As you can see, there's not a ton of deviation by year, but it has increased. As far as in 2022, we ended up with 173. 21 was kind of our spike year. That was the one that at the very end of the year, we started seeing the prevalence of the adulterated pill. And for the last 5 weeks of that year, we were scrambling to make sure that we had a good hold on the issue that was occurring and getting the word out not only to the citizens, but to the officers and the other. We said it's the #1 killer, 18 to 45, according to the CDC. So the fake pills are one of the scariest portions. You can have somebody who thinks that they are taking a legitimate prescription drug, even if they obtained it through an illegitimate source. Just say, for example, that I have a prescription for some kind of painkiller, and I leave it at home. And I know a friend that has that same prescription, and I ask them for one while I'm out. Is that poor decision making? Yeah. Is that illegal for them to distribute it? Sure. But overwhelmingly, you probably know somebody who has done that at some point in time because, hey, they've got a prescription for it, so they're not seeing it as illegally taken. Where we have really a problem with that is if you don't get it directly from the pharmacy, you don't know what you're getting. There's a coin toss right now of, does it have fentanyl in it, or is it a legitimate prescription? If you buy it on the street, there is a 50-50 chance that it could be adulterated with fentanyl, or it could be 100% fentanyl. And if you can imagine, you know, as the chief was explaining earlier, that with fentanyl being 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine, If someone makes that 100% fentanyl, or even if it is a 50% fentanyl blend, that is going to be a fatal overdose. So this is another section that we got from the DEA. As Xanax up here is the name brand. You've got alprazolam. One of the things to really keep in mind on this is if someone is taking an opiate painkiller and they end up getting fentanyl on top of that, it's going to enhance their normal opiate intake and it's going to cause the overdose. What's scary about this is not even an opiate, and this is being either adulterated with fentanyl or is completely fentanyl. And you have somebody who's not even planning on taking an opiate, who may not have any tolerance whatsoever to taking an opiate, and then they either get a partial dose or a full dose of fentanyl, which can absolutely wreak havoc on their system and cause an overdose. These are the capsules. These capsules are available online. You can get them often at stores to fill with whatever you want. It is a common trend now for people to make their own vitamins or blend up, dried fruits and vegetables to make their superfood supplement. So these capsules are readily available, and in and of themselves, they are not a problem. But if you have somebody who has fentanyl powder and they decide they want to make it in an easily ingestible or transferable form, they can fill up these capsules, and those dosages can vary wild. This is a patch that's available. It's a transdermal patch, and these are a legitimate source of fentanyl. They will issue these out at often for pain management places, for post-surgery, and this is one of the versions of fentanyl that we're not really seeing abused very often. At the very beginning of the fentanyl and opiate issues, we would see people that had multiple of these patches at once. That was the way they were overtaking these. But by and large, we are not seeing an abuse of legitimate. That's what the fentanyl patches look like outside of the wrapper. They are very often like nicotine patches or any other patch that you can put on your body that can be absorbed transdermally. So this was a representation that was put out several years ago of the fatal overdose levels. You've got heroin, fentanyl, and carfentanil. Thankfully, we're not seeing a ton of carfentanil in this area yet. Nationwide, it is out there, it is available. It is significantly stronger than even regular fentanyl. So whenever you start looking at the ratios of fentanyl being 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine, with carfentanil being exponentially stronger than regular fentanyl, those issues are just around the corner unless we get a handle on this. There's a powder form. One of the main things we want to get out there to the public, besides the line of one pill can kill, that is the national talking point on it, and it's a great one because if you don't know what you're taking, or you may not be accustomed to what is in it, that one pill can be all the difference. If you're used to taking an illegal substance, it could be more than you're used to. If you're not used to it at all, that can be the one pill that causes the fatal overdose. So Narcan is available, and we'll have some information back at the booths in the hallway. We've got a link that's here. It's at the OK I'm Ready. It is a state website, and you can get free Narcan kits that are sent to your house. There is a short video that's only a couple of minutes. It shows you how to use the kit. It tells you the importance of it, kind of some common issues that occur, and things to look for. But you can click on that link, you can enter your name and address, and they will send it to your house for free. All right, we've got a couple of minutes for questions and answers. All right, one in the back. Absolutely. That is right. And that is why they've put out the one pill can kill as more of a, you don't have to take it repeatedly or in high doses or daily, weekly, that even just trying it once, whether it's a portion of a pill or one pill, it can cause that unfortunate fatality. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Okay. Right. Well, we have not seen many online sourcing of the illegal drugs. I know that is available in other areas. Uh, so the question is how are the people who are consuming the pills either or the drug obtaining it, whether it's through online sources, and also how are they getting it into their system, whether they're mixing it with drinks or another method. Overwhelmingly, we are not seeing online sales, dark web sales, while those are available in other areas. Uh, we are seeing it through traditional drug trafficking routes. It is coming in either as fentanyl or mixed in with the other illegal drugs that are coming through, like heroin, methamphetamine, and unfortunately, the illicit pills. As far as taking it, they can mix it in a drink, but that is not a very popular method. If it's a powder, um, sometimes people they can inject it, they can snort it, they can sprinkle it onto marijuana cigarette and ingest it that way, like PCP was done. You can overwhelmingly take it through pill form, which is about the number one we're seeing now, unless it's mixed with heroin. Yes, ma'am. Right, we're talking about being able to get it through social media. Some of them are automatic delete functions on there. We're talking about the importance of checking your kids' phones. Anyone else? Yes. Well, I can tell you from the law enforcement side of things, we are bound by the confines of the law on the charges we're able to levy against somebody, and then that is up to the court system on what the punishment is and whether or not they can recommend or direct them into rehab services. We used to have a very good drug court situation through both counties that would get people the resources they need if they were willing to actively participate. But as of right now, there are very few compelling factors through the law that we can get people that kind of help. Yes.
We have an online question from Amber. As I know in the past with drugs like ecstasy, they came readily available on the streets in different colors and names like Heaven's Gate, Red Tulip, DBL, and triple stack forms. Are there names we should look for?
So the names and the title trends will vary from group to group. So we don't want to put out some misinformation on that and try and create any panic over something that isn't going to be the same, even in necessarily one part of town to the other part of town. So the colors, the presentations, that is very important because it can look like something other than drugs. It can look like candy. It can look like other pills. It can look like the legitimate pills, which is unfortunately what's catching a lot of people off guard. Are there any other questions? The ones that I have spoken to are, our big goal is to protect the communities that we serve and to be able to stop the drug flow and the drug use from both angles that we can. So the question was just be exposed to it or in the same room or in close proximity can cause damage. So we want to walk the balance of telling people to be appropriately safe with it, but also not create this into a boogeyman situation to where people are realistic about what's going on with it. If it killed everybody who was even around it, then we would have nobody who was doing it a second time. Okay? So we have to be realistic about the potency and what's there. If I get it into my system, if I inhale it, get it through a cut in my hand, or intentionally ingest it, absolutely, I can have a fatal overdose. It merely sitting in a bag on a table isn't going to come up and attack me that way. So we have to be very cautious since it is potentially transdermal and it can get through your system in those ways. But we don't want to cause some widespread panic where if it's in a room, everybody thinks that we have to evacuate everybody and everybody there needs treatment. Does that make sense? Anyone else? Are you talking about if they are testing it to see if it has fentanyl in it? No, we do not. Yes. Yeah, we were talking about the availability of test strips to test either the what you believe to be regular drugs bought on the street or illicit drugs for fentanyl, and also the availability of Narcan. We're going to have a lot of resources that are available after the meeting that are out in the hallway that can point you in the right direction for county resources and state resources. All right. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much. We'll be hanging out in the hallway after. If you need anything, let us know. We'll try and point you in the right direction.
Before we move on to our next presenter, I wanted to remind you guys that the Tiger Hut is open with some coffee right there in the hallway, so please go get some coffee if you need some. I want to also recognize some city officials we have in the room, Mayor Deborah Wimpy and Councilor Johnny Parks and Vice Mayor Christy Gillespie, so thank you guys for being here tonight. So our next presenter is Jamie Spradlin. She is with Ascension St. John, and let's go ahead and welcome her, Jamie Spradlin.
Hi, I'm Jamie. I'm the injury prevention nurse at St. John. My whole job is to work with the community and try to prevent people from ending up in our trauma. And fentanyl, a big problem that's out there right now. So I'm sure they touched on it, but fentanyl is a synthetic opioid. So it's manufactured, and it is 50 times stronger than heroin, and it's 100 times stronger than morphine. So opioid, what fentanyl is, it binds to receptors in the brain that control our areas of pain and emotion. This is why people want to take fentanyl, because it does numb the pain and almost dull our emotions. So there's two types. There's the pharmaceutical, which you go to your provider, they write you a prescription. This is the medication you go and you get from your pharmacy. Or there's the illicitly manufactured fentanyl, which is created illegally and is distributed by the drug manufacturer. So the reason fentanyl is such an issue is because it is relatively cheap to make and it's extremely potent. And so it comes in like a powdered form, which is commonly mixed in heroin, coke, meth, and it's in pills that resemble our prescription opioids. And then liquid fentanyl comes in forms of nasal sprays, eye drops, And it's dropped onto blotter paper or onto small. And then, so when it's added to all these other drugs, it's more powerful, more dangerous, and it's more addictive. So Eric talked on the fake versus the real. Very hard to tell. They're distributing it in candy boxes, and they even make wonderful rainbow-colored fentanyl that's very appealing to our adolescents. So this is showing you, when we talk about a very small amount of fentanyl is lethal, like less than, 2 milligrams can kill someone. So, and then according to the CDC, we lose 150 people each day because of these drugs. And the drugs that are laced with fentanyl are nearly impossible to detect because once they're mixed in, they're odorless, they're tasteless, they're not visible. So if you're not using these fentanyl strips to check your medications that you've obtained illegally, there's no way to know. And so here we're going to talk about the difference between somebody that's high on opioids versus someone that's actually overdosed. So if you see someone that, they're drowsy, they've got their pinpoint, tiny little pupils, and they may have a slurred speech or be itchy, most likely say they could be high on opioids. But if someone is overdosing, we're looking at like pale and clammy skin, they may have a limp body, they may not be able to speak or even wake up, and that's with you actually shaking them, saying, like, are you okay? And they're not responding to you. So if you see somebody that's got discolored skin, lips, nails, it's all bluish purple, that means they're not getting oxygen. And so you need to be checking to see if they're breathing, if they have a heart rate. So we can check the carotid in the neck, see if there's a pulse. You can look to see if their chest is rising. You can get close to their mouth to see if you can even feel their breath. If these things aren't happening, this is when we have to react. So we want to call 911. We're going to need help. And if they're not breathing, their heart's not beating, that's when you can jump in, start CPR. And if you've called 911 and you don't know how to do CPR, the dispatcher that you're talking to can walk you through how to perform CPR. But getting that blood flowing to their brain, getting that oxygen there, is going to save a life. And you will want to continue CPR until medical help arrives. Now, he talked a little bit about Narcan. And if this is someone that has Narcan available or you have Narcan, this is when you want to give it, okay? So Narcan is this wonderful life-saving medication. And how it works is it basically knocks the opioid off of the receptor and it binds to it in its place. So it reverses the effects of the opioids. And this is fairly instantaneous if this is what's caused the issue. And our examples of our opioids, we have heroin, morphine, fentanyl, codeine, oxycodone, hydrocodone, and there's more. And then the Narcan, you can actually get, the most common one now is the nasal spray, and it's like any other nasal spray. You're gonna open it, stick it in their nostril, push it. It's one dose, one spray. Now, the thing with Narcan is it lasts like 30 to 90 minutes. And if the drugs that they're on, they could be lasting longer. So you have to stay with this person until help arrives. Even if they wake up and they say they're fine, in that 30 to 90 minutes, they could lose consciousness again. And that would be where you would give them an additional dose, or you may just have to start CPR and wait for help. Oh, Narcan. Wonderful thing about this is you can use this on any age. From infancy to the elderly, the only thing that Narcan does is it binds to those opioid receptors. So it's not going to cause any other issues. So it is safe to use. So in 2020, more than 56,000 people died of an overdose from using synthetic opioids. And in 2019 to In 2020, the number of fentanyl overdoses and deaths went from 47 to 127 deaths. But the continuing total of our adolescents, our 10 to 19-year-olds in the U.S., has reached about 108,000 in deaths. And so we have social media that they're using and any other way that they're getting these medications. They don't know what's in them. They're taking them. And like they said, one pill can kill, half a pill can kill. Anything basically over like the 2 milligrams of fentanyl on somebody that's not used to taking it can kill them. So all I want to say is that we want to make sure that your prescriptions, you're taking them the way you're supposed to be taking them, as directed. When you're no longer needing them, then that's when you can dispose of them. And we have wonderful resources out here that can tell you like where you can go to dispose of any medications you still have in your own home that you no longer use. And so taking them correctly, disposing of them, and then when you do have them, locking them up, keeping them somewhere secure, knowing how much you have, and if some comes up missing, where are they going? And then, yes, know your signs. And if you see anyone and they are down and you suspect that they've had an overdose, don't hesitate. Call 911, take the action, save a life. Do we have any questions? Oh, he asked if there were 5 cases a day seen in hospitals of fentanyl overdoses. I will check on the actual statistics on that to see what they're seeing, how often, but I'm not 100% sure on that, right? Anyone else? Thank you all.
All right, I'm going to invite Ethan back up here so that he can introduce our final speaker. And after that Q&A session, we'll wrap it up in here, and you all are welcome to go out and tour some of the resources.
Okay, our last presenter tonight are 2 women from Family Supporting Families, Rebecca Brown and Diane Purcell. Please welcome them to the stage. Sorrel.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Me how, and I will here. Oh, I got it. So anyway, she died in March of 2018 from an illicit heroin overdose. Back then, that was the drug. Three months after she passed, I started a group here in Oklahoma called Family Supporting Families. And I needed a support group. I needed to be around people that understood what I was going through. And it took me a while to find a few people, but they eventually started just coming from word of mouth. And I started out with 5 moms at the time, and we have 167 families in our group now. Because of fentanyl, we just added 4 people to our group last week alone. It's never ending. I will tell you this, that everybody needs to carry Narcan. Everybody needs to carry Narcan. You don't know who you're going to use it on. You don't know when it's going to be. And I just wish, and that's our wish as parents, that everybody would just be loaded with it in their house, their cars, wherever. In Oklahoma, it is free. You can text naloxone to 55155, and they will mail it to you.
So do that, please. Get out your phones and do it. Get it. Have it on hand. The thing about Narcan is if you're not sure somebody's overdosing on an opioid and you use it on them, it's like spraying water up their nose. So it's not going to hurt anybody, and it's not going to cause any long-time effects. I can tell you this, that the fentanyl that we're seeing on the streets right now, and I don't mean to sound like the police, I'm just a mom that's done her work, and that's all I do now, is turn my pain into purpose, is what we call it. And I can tell you this, that most of you know that it is made in labs in China and in India, and it's brought across our borders in Mexico through our southern border. It is in everything on the street. There's not anything on the street anymore that does not have fentanyl in it. The reason test strips don't work is, and I will argue this point with everyone, the reason test strips do not work is it's like the chocolate chip cookie effect. You can break that pill in half. Half can kill you, and the other half cannot kill you. The other thing about the fentanyl test strips that they don't tell you is that pill has got to be broken down and put in liquid, and you need to test the whole entire pill. Now, I'm very familiar with addiction. My children have suffered with it, and I don't know any drug addict that is going to water down their pill to test it. They're not. They're gonna take it, and that's gonna be it. They build a tolerance up to it. It's in everything now. So a lot of people will ask, well, why didn't my son die when this person died from a half a pill? Because there's tolerance to it all. There's tolerance to it. The other thing is that Oklahoma prosecutes drug dealers. So if you give somebody a pill and you're passing it around in school and they die, trust me on this, you will go to jail and you will be charged with murder. Oklahoma has a felony murder rule. It was written in 1989. It was never used until my daughter died. And her dealer who sold to her that final dose that night did get prosecuted, and he's serving 30 years for her murder. After her murder and after he was sent to jail or to prison, we had 6 more cases. Several of them were pure fentanyl, and they were also prosecuted. Right now in Tulsa County, we have 22 more cases that are ready to go to trial for drug dealers. So be careful, because you know, your friends have pills, you're passing them around, and you're thinking, oh, you know, I'm going to share this with you, and that person dies, and they will find that. They will find out. There's a lot of ways for them to find out, and believe me, they will prosecute you for it. The other thing I wanted to talk to you about is get that Narcan. Everybody needs that Narcan. Don't be afraid to use it. Also, it does not expire. It does have an expiration date on it, but don't throw it away because it does not expire. Also, I am the, I'm sorry, I'm really, these things get me emotional, and especially when I see the pictures of everybody and all our kids up there. We rally around the Tulsa area a couple times a year, and we raise awareness. We turn our pain into purpose. And if we can save another family from going through what we've been going through, then we've done our job. A lot of parents don't want to hear about it. Some people don't understand it until it happens in your family. And everybody in this room is going to be touched by a fentanyl death. It's going to happen. I am the representative for Oklahoma for drug-induced homicide. I also help families advocate for justice for their families. Not everybody gets justice, and it's very sad that not everybody gets justice, but it is what it is. You know, if we have enough evidence, if we can prove this, do that. It takes a lot of work on the family's part. Some families don't want to pursue anything like that. But I did start this group, and if anybody out here is interested or knows of anybody that needs our support, we have a wonderful support group of families and moms that would just love on you and talk to you and be with you every step of the way, because it is not a journey to be taken alone. And if you could come out to one of our rallies that we have and see all our faces on posters, it would absolutely devastate you, because this is what's going on in our country right now, and it's not going to end anytime soon. Fentanyl is not going away. So if we do not educate especially our kids and and their parents. I don't know how else we can get the word out there, but education is key right now. And I'm so glad they're doing these forums and it's really sad because look at all the empty chairs. These should be all filled with parents right now. And look, how many do we have? A handful of them? So, Absolutely. So I'm gonna let Rebecca talk because she is our coordinator for our fentanyl assemblies at schools. So we are getting in schools and we're doing these assemblies. It's very important that you parents push your schools to let us in to do them because we have had tremendous resistance from the schools getting in.
Hi, everybody. My name is Rebecca Brown. I lost my son, Cole Brown, here. He was 18 and forever will be 18. He had purchased a Percocet from a dealer he had met on Snapchat. And he bought it thinking it was real, and he didn't know that it had fentanyl in it. There was enough fentanyl in it to kill 3 grown men. This was September 2nd, 2021. In 2021, we weren't really talking about fentanyl like we are now, so I'm really thankful and grateful for that. Cole was a great kid. He had a lot of good things going for him, and a lot of parents think it won't happen to my kid. Well, I'm one of those parents that thought it would never happen to my kid, and I still today can't believe that it did. I don't know if you guys have picked up the theme here today. Number 1 is Narcan, Narcan, Narcan. Everybody needs it. We're actually in our group trying to get for next year a bill passed to make it mandated that every school has it on their campus. I want to mention again, I'm kind of the last talker, so I'm trying to think of something that no one's covered, but I'm going to recover things because that's how important. The 2 themes I'm picking up is Narcan and education. These are the 2 things we need. We're not getting a ton of help from our head administration, so it's time for all of us, including schools, districts, mayors, legislators, senates. We got to protect our kids. We got to protect our people. I want to say again, if you'd like to get Narcan and naloxone, the same thing, 2 different names for the same thing. But you can text on your phone, everybody write this down, 55155. Text the word Naxalon to it. It will take you to that first site that the first police officer had spoken about, and you fill out a little thing online, and they mail it directly to your home for free. I'm going to tell you, it's not free in every state. I think it should be, but we are very blessed and grateful that here we can all get it for free. I also want to discuss a little part about, I have parents and people ask me, well, what are the red flags? What can you look for your kids to keep your kids safe? My son obviously had met a dealer on Snapchat, and I just want you to know I have flyers out there that I brought, and Snapchat is not aimed to protect our kids. That app is one of the worst apps. Have you ever heard of anybody dying from being sold something on Facebook? Or no, you hear about Snapchat. Because they have analogs, they're trying to get your kids addicted to getting on these apps. And then they can be sought after by dealers. And they're actually given menus. I don't know if anybody knows about that, but they will give them menus, and it'll say, I have this or that, and they'll deliver it right to your kid's door. You won't even know they're going out to get it. And a lot of kids have done that, youth, and they have actually they go get it, go inside, take it at night, lay down, and the next morning, parents find their kids dead in their bed. It's horrific. I also have brought with me a drug code. So I suggest to every parent, get your kid's phone, look in it, look in their apps. This is the different codes that they use to talk about drugs. So they use little emojis. I mean, if you look at your kid's phone, you might not even know that that's what they're talking about, but they're dealing drugs on these apps. I always tell parents, some of the red flags to look for is, I always say check on your kids at night, go to bed, then go back and check again. Because they think you're sleeping. It's prime opportunity, like to take pills, take drugs, take whatever. When your kids aren't as involved in school events like they used to be or sports, huge red flag. Also, I tell kids deal with a lot of things these days. It's really hard for adults. So consider being a youth. Mental health and drugs go hand in hand these days. From every story I hear, and like I said, we have that families group and moms come and share their stories of their kids, but it's usually depression, anxiety. Every story is a little different, but you always hear that they're struggling with something. I struggle with things. Everybody does. But try to talk with your kids. Get them some help. Try to give them, there's this documentary you can look at online, and it's called Natural High. What's the first part of it? Natural High. Dead on Arrival, Natural High. It's a youth version, and it's 6 minutes. I think every parent should get on YouTube and look that up and have your kids watch it. And it's education. We said Narcan and education. So our goal is to try to get in all of the schools and do assemblies. And we struggle with that. We've put out our information. This is important. We go and we have 2 moms, myself and Delana back there, who lost her son also. And we share our stories. We have a police officer come with us or a D agent and share a little bit. We share the 6-minute documentary, The Dead on Arrival, and then we have counselors on site. And this education with our kids, some kids don't even know. There's so many who are taking half a Percocet, half an Oxy, a Xanax, whatever it might be, and they have no idea that what they're taking could be the end of their life. They aren't trying to die. They're trying to either get high or entertainment, or like I said, to stuff feelings that they aren't able to deal with. So I encourage everybody to really look at that documentary, get Narcan, 55155, text Naxalon to that, and then please talk to your schools. We would love to go into every school and do free assemblies. I don't care if there's 5 kids in that assembly, 100, or 2,000. These kids need to know what they're up against. If anybody has any questions, right now would be the time to ask. Anybody? That's my question too. I'm not really sure why it's being so difficult. I don't know if it's... Yeah, I have made many, many phone calls. I spend a lot of my time calling schools, sending emails. I don't know. That is a very good question. You would think it'd be a no-brainer. Huh? I have been told by one superintendent that, the parents are worried. And I said, well, I'm a parent, and I'm more worried about my kid dying and not knowing. I mean, we aren't there to scare them. We are there. We share our kids' story. I have posters of like 60 kids that are teenage age that have died. I mean, do you guys realize that when they say there's 107,000 people dying every day in the United States, that's like equivalent to a 737 plane crashing every single day? And I can tell you what, these kids have no idea. Imagine taking one pill, and I do not condone drug use whatsoever. Never did with my son. Imagine taking one pill and it killing you. That's unfathomable to me to even think that. Yes, ma'am. You're absolutely right. You're right. They call that the chocolate chip cookie effect, so I want to explain it a little bit more. So when you do a chocolate chip cookie, you're putting all these chocolate chips in, right? Because you want it all to get the good stuff all over the cookie, right? Well, when these people are pressing these pills and handing them out like candy to our kids, it's not like they're doing it out of a pharmacy where they make the fentanyl all throughout the pill. It's just tossed in there. So when she's saying her son took a quarter of that pill and didn't wake up, that means all that fentanyl got in that one corner. It's not spread about like it should be. And I want to explain too, I have a lot of people who ask me, what is the point? Why are these dealers selling these drugs? To kill people? Oh, no. They're not trying to kill people. What they're trying to do is get your kid, the person, addicted, because this stuff is so highly addictive. They're hoping that they make money off of you before it kills you. That is the point of it. No, they're not trying to kill you. They're trying to get you high and make money off you. And let me say one other thing. My son, I have his phone since he's passed. And, sorry. If you read the text on my son's phone from the dealer between each other, this guy literally showed him a pill bottle, making him think it was real, because my son we had heard the word fentanyl, and he had said, I don't want anything fake. Okay? And this dealer assured him that he had the real thing. These dealers do not care about you. They are not in it because they will befriend you. They will say, and I'm talking to you kids, and thank you for bringing your kids to this, because every kid and every parent should be in this room. And I hope if you're online watching, you call your kids out here, because don't be the what ifs, or what if I would have told my kid. But I'm going to tell you, they don't care about your kids. They're out there to make money, and that is the bottom line. And don't think that you're like I feel my son, like he thought he was invincible. You're not. There's only one of you. There's only one Rebecca, one Jamie, one. Once you're gone, you're not replaceable. Once you're gone, that chair you sit at in the living room no longer will be filled, and you have no idea, and I'm talking from a mom, the heartache that you experience every single day when you lose a kid, because it is not natural to do this. And I get mad. I do. Because I'm like, what if someone was doing an assembly and talking to my kid about it in 2021? Maybe, just maybe, he'd be here today. That's why I push, because I'm going to tell you, I have a Mama Bear mission. I'm going to do whatever I have to do and call and talk and speak to whoever to get to talk to your kid. That is my goal out there. I care about your kids, and I care about your families, and I do not want you to ever go through what I go through every single day. Okay? It's not natural. You should never lose your kid. You should die before your kid. Is there any other question? Yes, ma'am. I've spoken in forums. I've spoken in forums at community events like this. I actually have spoken to a couple churches and tried to get into the youth groups. Like I said, I'll talk to 5 kids, because you know what? If my son's story impacts them in one way, or they can relate, and it saves their life, we saved 1 kid, and that life's worth it. Any other questions? Sorry, I left everything really heavy.
The other thing I was going to say is that we've worked closely with a couple of Tulsa Police Department. They help us with our assemblies as well. And one of our officers that just went to a school assembly with us a couple weeks ago was telling the kids that he has to use more than one box of Narcan now, sometimes 4 to 6 doses. So if you're ordering it, get more than 1 dose, more than 1 box. There are different analogs made almost every week in China and India, so we don't know what's coming in anymore. We don't know. It's stronger. We're seeing it stronger. Sometimes there's up to 6. One officer told us he had to use 9 doses. So it's some pretty scary stuff out there. A lot of people also ask, why are the drug dealers trying to kill you? They're not, like Rebecca said. But fentanyl is so cheap, it bulks up their product, and it's very easily to get hooked on. So they've got new customers every time you use. So please get the naloxone. Text naloxone 55155 and have it delivered, please. We have some cards out on the tables there. We also have Narcan with us if you need any at home. And that lady back there at Creoaks, she's loaded with Narcan, so go see her. Yeah. We all need to stick together. And please, There you go. She brought enough for every person in this room. And talk to your schools. You know, our cards are out there on that table back there. Our phone numbers are on there. Rebecca is our coordinator for our assemblies. Ask your schools to get us in there. We don't charge for this. This is coming from a mom's heart. I mean, we're here to save your kids, you know. Everybody needs to do their share. And thanks for having us. Hope we didn't talk. Well, they don't return calls. They don't return emails. They're always going to get back to us. We've even called schools that have had recent overdoses, not fatal, recent overdoses in their school parking lots, and they still don't return our calls. And like, this really bothers me. I'm sorry I'm on this, but look at the empty chairs. Like, what? Why? You know, why? Why isn't anybody here?
Because it hasn't affected their.
Right.
Let's go ahead and give them a round of applause. Thank you guys so much for your testimonials. I want to invite Chief Berryhill up to the stage one final time to kind of close out the night. And then again, we still have about 22 minutes left until this event is over. So I would love to have you guys go back into the hallway, get information from the vendors. They have amazing information for you at their booths. So thank you again. Thank you to the speakers tonight. Let's all give them a round of applause for everyone who spoke tonight. And one final thing, these PowerPoints will be on Facebook and YouTube, so you can watch them back if you missed something tonight. And finally, again, the Tiger Hut is open again until 7:30 for some coffee. So here's the chief.
Well, thank you for coming. One thing I want to point out is the Broken Arrow School System hosted this. You know, we did a podcast last night, and you know, the Broken Arrow Schools has Narcan on every school site in case there's an issue. So I want to applaud them for that and being proactive. Yeah. So, yeah, what she was saying was correct. It hadn't affected some families, so I don't really think about it. But I want you to think about the best vacation you ever took with your kids, wherever that's at, wherever your happy place is, and the time you took to plan that out, where you're going to stay, what you're going to do. If you can just take 1/10 of that time and talk with your kids about this, you're going to get to take that next vacation. So that's how important this is, and this is something that's not going away. It's just going to get worse. And as much as we can do to stop the flow, it's really about the use. So thank you for coming.